Have you ever felt like you were on the verge of like a major life shift, like shedding an old skin and stepping into a whole new you? Well, today we're going to do a deep dive into a document that I think offers a fascinating framework for understanding these like transformative periods in our
Oh,
lives.
yeah. You know me, I love frameworks that try to make sense of the human experience.
hmm
This document, it's titled MPET Sphere, Nexus, Adjutant Mind.
Okay, the title's a mouthful. What is this document all about? What kind of insights are we hoping to uncover?
It seems to be exploring like a really unique system for understanding human life and spiritual evolution. It's dense, but it draws on various philosophical and possibly even spiritual traditions.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does it approach this idea of spiritual evolution?
Well, it uses this model called MOTA. The document describes it as like a container that holds the entire philosophy of life, both here on Earth and after death.
Whoa, that's a pretty big container. What kind of philosophy are we talking about here?
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not like explicitly tied to any one religion or belief system. Instead, it lays out these 28 reference points, organized into 7 circles of spiritual and intellectual understanding.
7 circles! That sounds complex. Can you give us a taste of what these circles represent?
Well, each circle seems to symbolize a different stage of spiritual development. The document doesn't go into detail about all 28 reference points in this excerpt, but it does lay out the foundation with what it calls the 4 spheres of life.
Okay, let's talk about these spheres. What are they and how do they relate to our lives?
Think of the spheres as like different phases of life, each with its own unique lessons and challenges. First, we have the sphere of influence, which is all about those early years when we were absorbing information from the world around us.
So like a sponge soaking it all up.
Exactly. Then we move into the sphere of evolution, where we start to like test our boundaries, experiment with different identities, and figure out who we are as individuals.
That sounds like those classic teenage years, full of angst and self-discovery. What comes after that?
Next is the sphere of charm, where we focus on like cultivating our unique talents and gifts, developing our personalities, and finding our place in the world.
So it's like we're refining who we are and stepping into our own power.
Exactly. And finally, we arrive at the sphere of purpose of life, where we seek meaning fulfillment and a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves.
This is all starting to make sense. So as we move through life, we're essentially cycling through these 4 spheres?
That's the basic idea. But there's another layer to this framework, something called the Nexus. Think of it like a cosmic clock.
A cosmic clock. Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this nexus.
The Nexus is a 7-year cycle that governs our movement through each sphere. Each sphere lasts for 7 years, guiding us through progressively deeper phases of physical, emotional, mental, intellectual, and spiritual development.
Hold on, so we spend 7 years in each sphere. That's fascinating. Does that mean everyone's on the same timeline?
That's where it gets really interesting. While the Nexus suggests a general framework, the document hints that everyone's journey is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all path.
That makes sense. We all have different experiences and learn at our own pace. But if these spheres are like different phases of a journey, what propels us from one to the next?
That's where things get even more intriguing. The document talks about something called activation. It's not enough to just passively exist within a sphere. We have to actively engage in our own growth to transition to the next stage.
So these activations are like catalysts for change.
Exactly. They're like those pivotal moments that force us to confront our limitations,
Yeah.
expand our awareness, and step into a new level of understanding.
Okay, I'm ready to unpack these activations. What can you tell us about them?
Well, there are 5 key activations within each 7-year cycle. The first one, called Challenge, happens between the ages of 7 and 14, as we transition from the sphere of influence to the sphere of evolution.
Ah, so those early challenges we face as kids are actually crucial for our development.
That's the idea. Think about it. During those years, we start to encounter social pressures, navigate school dynamics, and maybe even face our first moral dilemmas. These challenges push us to develop our sense of self and learn how to navigate the complexities of the world.
It's amazing how these, like, seemingly ordinary childhood experiences fit into this bigger picture of spiritual evolution. What about the next activation?
That one, called Breakthrough, occurs between ages 14 and 21, the classic coming-of-age period. This marks the transition from the sphere of influence to the sphere of charm.
Okay, so that's when we're breaking free from those early influences and discovering who we truly are.
Exactly. Think back to your own teenage years. Was there a particular achievement, realization, or experience that helped you gain a new understanding of your identity?
You know, there was. When I was 16, I got a lead role in this school play, And it completely shifted my perspective on what I was capable of. It was like I finally found my voice, both literally and metaphorically.
That's a perfect example of a breakthrough moment. It's about transcending limitations and realizing our unique potential. And what's interesting is that even though this framework is based on a 7-year cycle, the activation might not happen exactly on your 14th or 21st birthday. It's about recognizing those pivotal moments in your own personal timeline.
That's a good point. So what comes after this breakthrough stage?
From ages 21 to 28, we transition from the sphere of charm to the sphere of purpose of life, and the activation here is called love, core stability.
Okay, love. That's a big one. Is this about finding romantic love?
It's broader than that.
Mm.
The document describes this activation as the realization that love in all its forms is the foundation for our life's purpose. It's about developing self-acceptance, learning to make sacrifices for things we believe in, and deepening our understanding of our place in the world.
So before we can truly discover and pursue our purpose, we have to understand and cultivate love.
That's the essence of this stage.
This is all so fascinating. I'm already starting to see how these activations might have played out in my own life. I can't wait to hear more about the remaining 2 activations in the first cycle. Core stability. They all seem to build on each other in a really interesting way.
Yeah, it's like a spiral staircase, wouldn't you say? Each step leads us higher, but we're also like circling back to similar themes, but with a new level of understanding.
I like that analogy. So where does the spiral staircase lead us next? What are the final 2 activations of the first cycle?
Well, from ages 28 to 42, we transition back to the sphere of influence, from the sphere of purpose of life. But this return is not a regression. It's more like coming full circle, but with a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
So we're returning to that place of influence, but this time with a stronger sense of purpose.
Precisely. And this return is marked by 2 activations, mercy and ministry.
Okay, I'm curious to learn more about these. What does mercy entail?
Mercy, which occurs between the ages of 28 and 35, focuses on compassion for oneself. The document describes it as achieving salvation from eternal death. Now, that might sound a bit dramatic, but I think what it's getting at is like the importance of self-love and self-acceptance.
So it's like recognizing our own worthiness and embracing ourselves fully.
That's a great way to put it. The document even mentions that like this period is often when people get married and experience deep love.
So is it suggesting that romantic love is essential for spiritual growth?
Not necessarily. The document cautions against mistaking romantic love as the only form of spiritual growth. It's more about recognizing the power of love in general. Love for ourselves, love for others, love for something greater than ourselves.
That makes sense. It's about cultivating a deep sense of love and compassion,
Wow.
both inwardly and outwardly. So what about ministry? What does that activation look like?
Ministry comes next, from ages 35 to 42. It's about putting that love into action, serving oneself and the others with awareness and love.
So it's not just about giving to others, it's also about serving ourselves. That's an interesting concept.
Yes, and I think it's a crucial one. The document highlights a common misunderstanding about ministry, the idea of sacrificing ourselves without true happiness. It emphasizes that we can't truly serve others if we haven't first cultivated self-love and self-care.
That makes so much sense. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Exactly. The document even provides an example of like an unhappy marriage where one partner mistakes sacrifice for true service, missing the point entirely.
Wow, that's a powerful illustration of the difference between genuine service and self-sacrificing martyrdom.
Right. It's a reminder that true ministry comes from a place of wholeness and abundance, not from a place of depletion or obligation.
This is really resonating with me. I think a lot of us struggle with finding that balance between serving ourselves and serving others.
Absolutely. It's a lifelong journey, and I think this framework offers some valuable insights into how we can navigate that journey with more awareness and intention.
So we've now explored all 5 activations of the first cycle. What happens next? Do we just keep cycling through these same stages over and over again?
Not exactly. Remember, this whole framework is about evolution. The first cycle, from birth to age 42, is like laying the foundation. We're gathering experiences, exploring different facets of ourselves, and developing our core values.
So it's like building the framework of our being.
Exactly. Then from ages 42 to 84, we enter the second cycle, which is all about transformation and deeper understanding.
Transformation. So it's not just about repeating the same patterns, we're actually evolving on a fundamental level.
That's the core idea. The second cycle isn't about simply revisiting the same activations. It's about refining them, integrating them, and ultimately transcending them.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to dive into the second cycle. What kind of transformations can we expect?
Well, one of the most significant changes occurs within the Adjutant mind. Remember those 7 circuits we talked about earlier?
Yes, intuition, understanding your courage, knowledge, counsel, worship, and wisdom. Do these circuits become even stronger in the second cycle?
It's more than just strengthening, it's about evolution.
Mhm.
Each circuit undergoes a profound transformation, taking on a deeper and more nuanced meaning.
Oh, that's interesting. So
Go
it's
ahead.
not just about amplifying those qualities, it's about refining them into something more profound.
Exactly. For example, intuition, which was that initial awareness of reality in the first cycle, transforms into insight in the second cycle. It's like we're not just sensing things anymore, we're seeing through them, gaining a deeper understanding of their essence.
So it's like our intuition becomes more focused, more insightful.
Precisely. And this pattern of evolution continues with each of the circuits. Understanding evolves into overstanding, implying a more holistic and comprehensive way of seeing the world.
I love that term overstanding. It suggests a deeper level of comprehension, like seeing the bigger picture.
Right? And courage, which helped us face challenges in the first cycle, transforms into resilience. It's not just about being brave anymore. It's about bouncing back from setbacks, being adaptable in the face of change.
Resilience is definitely a quality that becomes more crucial as we navigate the ups and downs of life. What about knowledge? How does that evolve in the second cycle?
Knowledge transforms into illumination. It's not just about accumulating facts and information anymore. It's about connecting the dots, seeing the deeper meaning behind things, and using that knowledge to guide our actions.
It's like our knowledge becomes infused with wisdom and understanding.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And this pattern continues with each of the remaining circuits.
Okay, I'm eager to hear about those transformations. But before we dive in, let's take a moment to recap what we've covered so far. We've explored the 4 spheres of life, the concept of the Nexus, those 5 intriguing activations in the first cycle, and now this idea of the adjutant mind circuits evolving in the second cycle.
You've got it. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore how those adjutant mind circuits transform and what implications those transformations might have for our lives.
I'm ready when you are, listeners. Stay tuned, because we're about to unlock even more profound insights into this fascinating framework for spiritual evolution. Okay, so we've been on this incredible journey exploring this MOTA framework. We've talked about the spheres of life, the nexus, those pivotal activations, and how the adjutant mind circuits evolve in the second cycle. I'm really starting to see how this framework offers a whole new perspective on personal growth.
It is. And you know what I find fascinating is that it doesn't just describe like a linear path.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it emphasizes the cyclical nature of life. The idea that we're constantly revisiting themes and challenges, but we approach them with greater understanding each time around.
Right, it's like we're spiraling upwards, constantly evolving and expanding our awareness.
Exactly. So are you ready to delve deeper into how those adjutant mind circuits transform in that second cycle?
Absolutely. We left off with intuition evolving into insight and understanding becoming overstanding. What about the other circuits?
Well, next up is courage, which, as we discussed, transforms into resilience in the second cycle. It's no longer just about facing fears head-on, but about developing that inner strength to bounce back from setbacks and adapt to change. Think about it. In the first cycle, we're learning to be brave, but in the second cycle, we're mastering the art of resilience.
That makes a lot of sense. Life throws curveballs, and resilience helps us navigate those challenges with grace and determination.
Precisely. Then we have knowledge, which evolves into illumination in the second cycle. It's like our knowledge becomes less about accumulating facts and more about discerning the deeper meaning behind those facts.
So it's about connecting the dots, seeing the bigger picture, and gaining wisdom from our experiences.
You got it. It's like that aha moment, when everything clicks into place and you see the world through a new lens. It's not just about knowing things, it's about understanding them on a deeper level.
I love those moments of illumination. They're like little bursts of insight that can shift our entire perspective. What about counsel? How does that circuit transform?
Counsel evolves into guidance in the second cycle. It's about moving beyond simply giving or receiving advice and tapping into a deeper well of wisdom.
So it's less about offering quick fixes and more about providing direction based on a more holistic understanding.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best guidance comes from within, and that our intuition coupled with experience can be a powerful compass.
That resonates with me. I think as we get older, we start to trust our own inner guidance more.
Absolutely. Then there's worship, which undergoes a profound transformation to communion in the second cycle.
Communion. That sounds like a deep level of connection, maybe even a sense of oneness.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about moving beyond ritualistic practices and experiencing a more profound connection with the divine, however you define that. It's about feeling a sense of belonging, of interconnectedness with something greater than ourselves.
It's like tapping into that universal energy that flows through all of us.
Exactly. And finally, we have wisdom, which culminates in enlightenment in the second cycle.
Now, enlightenment is a big word. What does it actually mean in the context of this framework?
It's the pinnacle of spiritual growth. The integration of all the previous stages, all the knowledge and experiences into a state of profound understanding and inner peace. It's about transcending the limitations of the ego and realizing our true nature.
So it's not just about being wise, it's about embodying wisdom in every aspect of our being.
That's a beautiful way to describe it. It's about living in alignment with our highest selves and expressing our unique gifts in the world.
This is all so inspiring. It really makes you think about the possibilities for growth and transformation throughout our lives.
That's the beauty of this framework, isn't it? It reminds us that we're never truly finished evolving, that there's always more to learn, more to experience, more to become.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you hope our listeners will glean from this exploration of the MOTA framework?
I think the most important message is that spiritual growth is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's about embracing the cycles, learning from the challenges, and continuously evolving towards a greater understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And remember, everyone's path is unique. There's no right or wrong way to navigate this journey.
That's such a powerful message. And I think it's especially important in a world that often pressures us to strive for some external measure of success or achievement.
You're so right. This framework encourages us to shift our focus inward, to embrace our own unique journey, and to celebrate the transformative power of each stage of life.
Well said. This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the human experience.
Me too. And remember, we've only scratched the surface of this document. There's so much more to explore in the full text.
For our listeners who are just as intrigued as we are, we'll be sure to include a link to the full document in the show notes, so be sure to check that out. And in the meantime, I encourage everyone to reflect on their own journeys, to notice the cycles and activations that have shaped their life, and to embrace this ongoing process of becoming.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of human potential.